Hi, and welcome to my Get That Gig seminar. I'm Tracy Johnson. Today, I'm going to show you how you can get the radio job that you want and the job that you deserve based on your talent. How many times have you known that you're a great candidate for a gig? Better candidate, in fact, than the personality or the program director who actually got that gig. Now, how does things like that happen? Why were they chosen instead of you? Is it because of luck or being in the right place at the right time? Well, maybe. But maybe you can create your own luck. Maybe you can tilt the odds in your favor so that you're in the right place at the right time next time. Today, I'm going to share some tips and strategies to help you get that gig. Because guess what? Those gigs are out there, and there's some good ones today. Decision makers, I'm talking about managers, VPs of programming, program directors, market managers, group heads. They're all looking for talent. I talk to them every single day. And guess what? They tell me the same thing. They can't find anybody out there. They can't find good people. And I also talk to hundreds of personalities, program directors, producers who are looking for a gig. And I talk to people who are on the beach and they can't find anything. It seems like we should be able to make this work, right? So today, I'm going to show you how to get that gig. Now, it's presented by my friends at Benstown. Benstown.com is the service that provides radio with imaging, production, programming services. Great people over there. Check out Benstown.com. Today, I'm going to break this down into three basic areas. Number one is how to market your personal brand so you're in a position to get that gig when the time comes. I'm going to show you some methods for getting attention from key decision makers and what goes into that. And I'm going to show you some tools and resources that you can use to help get you on the right path now. Now, a lot of you are probably wondering if radio still loves you, or at least if radio loves you as much as you love radio. My advice is to keep on grinding. It's not just about caring the most or working the hardest or having the most passion or loving radio and loving what you do more than the next person. You also have to be smart. So my first Get That Gig advice has to do with setting goals, knowing what you want, having a great attitude about it to demonstrate that you're positive, and being prepared. And these things take time. Let's start with goals. What is it that you want? Know what you want and focus on getting it. And by what you want, I mean, where do you want to be? What market do you want to be in? What station is right for you? What format would you like to be in? What kind of show do you want to do if you're a personality? If you're a program director, what kind of station do you want to program? Does format matter? What kind of a programmer are you? What's your specialty? Or who do you want to work for? What company? What manager? What program director? And when do you want it to happen? Is this something that you need to have happen now because you're on the beach? Or is it something that you're playing out a contract and you've got 6 months or 9 months or a year left and you want to make it happen then? Knowing what you want and when you want it is going to help you get that gig because you're not going to waste time on gigs that you don't really want, because that makes a bad fit. Now, one of the things that I've noticed from managers and decision makers at all size companies, large companies, small companies, they don't want to hire a Swiss Army knife. They're not looking for just anybody who wants to find a job. And there's a lot of people out there who think that if they put more skills or more attributes on their resume and say, here's all the wonderful things I can do, it's going to improve their chances of getting that gig. But it doesn't. The opposite happens. Managers aren't looking for just anybody to fill a position. They're looking for a perfect fit for their opening. And you should be looking for the perfect opening for your fit. So don't take any old job and hope that it's going to work out later. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're a better co-host than host, don't pretend you can be a host. Know what your strengths are. Know what your weaknesses are. If you want to be a morning personality that eventually becomes a talk show host, don't apply for a night job that's a DJ position. It's just not going to work out. Now, recently this happened to me. I was hiring a producer, helping my client hire a producer, and we came across a candidate who was highly qualified. But the more I talked to her about it, it was pretty clear that what she really wanted was to be on the air. And she was willing to take a producer job if it got her one step closer to being a primary air personality. And I said, but if you don't really want to be a producer, don't take a producer job. And it was probably the best advice that I could give. And she said, you know what? You're right. It's not really what I want. Would have been a bad fit. It probably would have ended badly. And she finally said, you know what? That job's not for me, but keep me in mind for something else that comes along that is a perfect fit for me. And now it makes me want to hire her even more for the right fit. It'll be best for all parties. So know what you want and then focus on getting it. Second thing is you've got to have a great attitude. Be positive. It doesn't matter how beaten down you are. Nobody wants to hire a negative, cynical person. And there's a lot of them out there, and I get why you're that way. Maybe you've been on the beach for a while. Maybe it's been 6 months or 9 months or a year, and you're wondering if you even want to be in radio anymore. Don't let that come out in the interview process. I've had many situations where this has come up. People who are qualified, but I knew they wouldn't make a good impression internally with my client. I can't recommend them. Recently, I was interviewing two candidates. My client and I did interviews back to back with two different candidates for the same job, personalities in a high-profile morning show position. One of them didn't make eye contact the entire time, was looking away, and asked what their current situation is. And they talked about how hard the job search has been and talked about how radio has changed and kind of gave the impression that they were kind of down about everything. The other, we asked the same questions, talked about how they got into the business and the magic of radio and how exciting it is to impact lives through a microphone every day, and they can't wait to come to work and push that button and impact people. Guess who got hired? It wasn't necessarily the most qualified or the most experienced. It was the one that made a better impression with a positive attitude. Nobody wants to be around negative people. So find a way to be positive and find a way to be confident. And confidence is hard to have when you're somewhat desperate for a job. And a lot of you are desperate for a job. But find a way to fake it. Now, that's hard if you've had a bad experience or if you're out of work, and you don't have to apologize, by the way. You don't have to feel guilty or embarrassed or shy about being on the beach. Own it. Believe me, managers get it. Talent coaches like me get it. Consultants get it. We understand that a lot of companies are downsizing and there's layoffs that happen. Own it. But don't be smug or don't be cocky about it. Be self-deprecating about your shortcomings or how you need to grow, but be bold and confident about the things that you're great in and demonstrate why you're a perfect fit for the job that you're going after. And the third thing is to be constantly marketing. Don't wait until you need a job to find that next job. You should be present, making impressions with decision makers every single chance that you get. And there's a lot of chances that are out there. But it's one of those things where you need to constantly be in front of people. And I'm going to show you how and why this is important throughout the rest of this presentation. The time to launch your Get That Gig campaign is right now, and that's even if you have a gig. It'll create demand, and those contacts that you make now and the impressions you make now will help you if and when you really need one. So let's talk about how you can constantly market, how you can market your brand and make an impression. So you found the right gig to target. It's a good fit. It's a market you want to be in. It's a manager you want to work for. It's a station you want to be at. It's a company you want to be at. How do you approach it? Let's talk about the package, what works and what doesn't work. Let's talk about the demo, solving that whole air check puzzle, and going deep to provide the information that you want them to see, not the information that they're trying to dig up on you. So here's how you do it. First of all, realize that there's a process. It's not just throwing out your package and making a couple of contacts and say, all right, who wants to hire me? The process goes, it's a marketing process that starts with introduction, extends to your air check if you're a personality, and certainly your resume if you're a program director or promotions or producer. Having a personal website, which we're going to talk about, and then making an impact in person, especially with the interview phone call. It all starts with the introduction. The only goal for the introduction is to get that decision maker interested in hearing your demo if you're a personality. If you are a program director or a producer, then you may not want to get them to audio, but you want to get them through that introduction and get them excited and looking forward to hearing what you have to offer by getting them to your resume or get them into a deeper conversation. So start with a short, sharp, focused introduction. Now, this is usually going to happen by email because a lot of decision makers don't like phone calls anymore. And it needs to be brief. Keep it focused, keep it to the point, and keep it focused on the recipient of your message, not on you. Nobody has time to read your life story, and frankly, they don't care. If you send a long cover letter, it's just going to get in the way. It's usually going to get skimmed or just thrown away or disregarded. And what that suggests to a decision maker is you don't know how to edit content very well. It can also suggest that you're self-absorbed and don't care very much about the market that you're promoting to. So send a short paragraph, maybe 2 paragraphs. That's all you need. But it's going to be brief and considerate of the decision maker's time, but it also has to be creative, fun, and great. And it's going to take time to fine-tune that message because the longer your message, the easier it is to write. When you write a short message that you want to make an impact, it gets a little bit harder. So dress it up. Sending another boring email that introduces you, that reads like every other application, gets lost in the clutter. It's very important that you do your homework. Make sure that that first point of contact is warm, it's personal, that you know something about that decision maker. Find out something about the station, not just the call letters, and know at least a little bit about the station's history and the competitive situation. You don't have to show off that you know all these things, but having that background or making some sort of mention that indicates that you've at least done your homework goes a long way. You send a generic application that goes out mass-produced to any station, makes the PD think, the decision maker think, that you really don't want to work there. It makes them think that you're sending out a million application hoping that something sticks. And you want to make sure that they think this is their goal. This is where they want to be. Never start an email with "Dear Sir" or "Dear Ma'am" or "To whom it may concern" or "Dear Program Director." It shows that you're lazy or shows that you just want a job, but you don't really want this job. So approach that application and think about it from the program director's point of view, from the decision maker, from the manager's point of view. What are they looking for? What do they want? What problem can you solve that makes their life better, that makes their radio station better, that makes their company better? How can you make them feel good and look good because you're part of the team? Program directors should always feel your motivation. Should sense that you have as much passion for the brand as they do. If you're a program director trying to get a PD job with a manager, you should show them that you are confident and that you are concerned about growing the brand long term. And yes, we want to also make money with this. But don't go out of your way showing them how you're so sales friendly. A good manager, a manager that you want to work with, is going to realize that they can make money if you deliver results. All of this takes a little bit extra effort, but that can be the difference between having a shot and being completely ignored. Now, when you send that letter, send that email, don't go into too much detail about your past. Your only goal in the introduction is to get to the second step of the process. That introduction can build anticipation, it can build curiosity, and if you craft it so the decision maker looks forward to hearing your air check or looking at your resume, the introduction has done its job. So the first step is make a great impression in the introduction. Get the recipient in a great mood before they listen to the audio, before they look at the resume, and it's going to change the way they look at your qualifications when they get to step 2. Step 2, now this is for personalities. If you're applying for an on-air job, step 2 is going to be the air check, the audio. All messaging up to this point should guide the decision maker to the audio that features you and your work and what you can do. So attach a small MP3 or maybe a link to a short air check online. Attaching the MP3 is much better. That extra click to go online for some reason is a mental barrier where the PD would rather click on the MP3 and download it and then play it, then click on it and go to a website or to a stored file like on a Google Drive and play it. I don't know why that is, but it's true. It seems like it takes longer. So it's best to attach an MP3. A lot of candidates will send a single break that represents what they do. Some will send a tightly edited reel of short segments that are gathered from a lot of breaks, and I've seen both of those tactics work. But I found that it's best to send 3 segments that represent the full range of your skills. If you send 4, it's too many. It's kind of overkill. If you send 2, it's not enough. 3 is just right. I call it the rule of 3. Now, you may think that's not enough to demonstrate all of your ability, but don't worry about that in the beginning. The goal here should be to make a positive first impression and get the prospect interested in what you do, to hearing what you're capable of, and get them thinking, yeah, I can hear that on my radio station. There'll be plenty of time to send more samples of your work. They're going to ask for more. So don't overdo it in that first impression. 2 to 3 minutes is plenty. And whatever you do, don't send multiple files. It makes everything more complicated. It's one more extra hoop to jump through, and chances are the PD's not going to listen to an extra file anyway. And what if they don't listen to your best effort? What if they choose one that's not what you want them to hear? It may cost you the job. And it never helps your cause. You can always send more audio later. Now, send one file and make sure that they hear the segments you want them to hear. Remember that nobody ever wins a job with the first audio demo, but a lot lose their job or lose their shot at a job in the first audio demo. So generally keep it a couple of minutes, maybe 3 minutes at the most. Shorter seems suspicious. If it's longer, it's kind of a waste of time because no matter how good it is, the decision maker is probably not going to make it through all the way to the end anyway. And if they look at the length of the size of the file, this happened to me just the other day. I got a air check in from a talent and I looked at it and it was a 13-minute long air check. And I thought, man, I don't have time to listen to this 13 minutes. And instead of listening to any of it, I didn't listen at all. I could have listened for a minute or two to find out what it's all about, but it just has that mental impact. You just don't want to send a long one. A lot of times it won't get listened to. Even a tightly edited air check, say one that's 6 minutes or 7 or 8 minutes long, it's kind of counterproductive. The first impression audio is what you want. You want to get into a discussion, you want to get noticed, and you want to get on to the next round. It's kind of like the hook of an on-air segment. Just get the audience, and in this case, the program director, the decision maker, is the audience. Get them interested in going deeper. Oh, and never, ever, ever send a full show in your first communication. When the negotiation gets serious, the PD's probably going to listen live anyway, or ask you for a full show, or check out your podcast or your show on demand. The first break should be your best. And that best segment always goes first, because a lot of times, especially if the PD sends this on to another decision maker, like their supervisor or a regional VP of programming or a market manager, they're not going to go as deep as the PD did. So if your first break is talking up a song intro with a weather forecast or playing a contest or call in to win, it may sound smooth, but that's not a selling point. It's expected that you can do that. Capture their attention immediately with unique, compelling content and put it up front. Your best break should always go first. Never save it for the end. Have you watched program directors as they go through audition tapes? Sit in on that sometime if you can. Or maybe if you're a program director, you know how you listen to them. You wouldn't believe how many air checks never make it past the first 10 seconds. And a lot of times they make a snap decision. Consider or delete. It goes that fast. So always get the best audio sample up first. Be bold with your best work. Don't bury it deeper. And also, oh, by the way, don't overproduce it. No generic content, very little production, unless you're applying for an imaging or production job. They don't want to hear how great you are at editing commercials or commercial work, or what your show sounded like with the imaging in it. Maybe a production like 1 or 2 seconds to intro you is fine, but anything more than that just kind of gets in the way and it seems suspicious. Remember that PD, that decision maker, wants to imagine what you're going to sound like on their station, not what you sounded like in the past. And a lot of times overproducing that with all the bells and whistles kind of either makes them suspicious or makes them think, no, that's not for me. That's not what we sound like. So make it about you, and whatever you do, don't intro it. Never, ever narrate your air check. That's what the introduction is for. There's really no point in coming on to say, okay, here comes my audition tape. I hope you like it. So avoid that. It's boring. And boring air checks cause PDs to think that you're a boring personality. There'll be time to show off your full range of skills in the interview process once you get that far. Oh, and by the way, a short video intro can be useful. If you put it on a personal website, don't send it as an email, but put it up on a personal website that includes details about who you are and what you're all about. This can be highly effective. Just keep it out of that initial package. Oh, and one more caveat about the air check. Avoid putting together a greatest hits package that's so perfect you can never back it up. A great demo of nothing but greatest hits may help get a job, but make sure the job you're getting is one you can keep. So that air check needs to be able to be something that you can back up. Make it your best representation, but make sure it's something that you can deliver. Now, after you have completed the air check process and you've gotten that in, the next thing the program director is going to do, or the decision maker is going to do, is look a little bit deeper and find out what you're all about. Where have you worked? What have you done? That's where the resume comes in. So attach a resume to the email, to that introduction email. And of course, if you're a program director, if you're a producer, and you don't have an air check, the resume is going to take on more importance. Most of the time, that decision maker isn't going to look at it until they've gotten past that introduction. If they're still interested in you after the introduction, if they've heard the audition tape and they like you, now they're going to get to this step of the process. So once they're past that first hurdle, the resume can get you to the next round. Now, over the years, I've known some incredibly talented personalities, but their talent and experience doesn't translate to an impressive resume most of the time. And a lot of times, personalities miss those opportunities that they're qualified for because they've got a weak resume, or it's sloppy, or it's misspellings in it, or it's poorly formatted, or maybe it's just boring. And I see a lot of those. There's 3 common mistakes that people make when they're applying for jobs in the resume process. Number 1, the killer is too much detail. A lot of decision makers will quickly scan a resume to get a sense of experience and qualifications, but not very many are going to read every last detail. So if you're filled with all of your skills, it's just going to bog down. They're not going to be able to pick out what's important about you. A great resume should highlight your qualifications, your career goals, and match the gig that you're going for. So lead with your strengths, just like with the air check. If your best selling point is your experience, demonstrate it. If it's your special skills or awards or achievements, put those first. But don't list everything that you do. It clutters it up, makes it hard to pick out the most important selling points. Second big mistake that most radio people make with the resume is having too little meaningful information. Now, over time, we get a lot of experience that may or may not be relevant to a job that you're targeting. But not every job duty and not everything that you've done is relevant to every opening that you might be interested in. In fact, when you list everything that you know how to do, it could cause that decision maker to think of you as a jack of all trades but master of none. If you're going for a specific position, know what the qualifications are for that position and edit your resume to target that position. Everybody knows how to read the weather and produce contest promos. Things that are a given should be replaced with things that apply specifically for what you're going for. When a decision maker sees some skills that are perfect for the opening and it's backed up by your experience, it's going to be a lot more impressive than a broad generic applicant. Now, when I see an applicant that says, I can do any day part on any format in any market, or I'd also be interested in programming or maybe as an imaging and production guy, and I can help out on sales calls too. You know what I do? I run the other way because they can't possibly be great at all of those things. And in this job market, decision makers are looking for someone who's going to make their organization better, it's going to make it stronger, and it's going to be great. Now, maybe you've done all of those things, and maybe you know how all of those things work, but I'm looking for great. And I'm looking for someone who can really make an impact and be a difference maker. So focus that resume. It's going to be simpler. It's going to be easier to read. You're going to catch the PD's attention a lot more quickly. And the third killer for resumes is when the presentation is boring. Listen, this is show business. You're not applying for a factory job or a data entry position or something that you're putting widgets on a factory line. A resume should be professional, but it should also reflect the character and the personality of the person who's applying. So dress it up. Make it fun. A lot of times the PD is looking for somebody who's bright, fun, and entertaining on the air. And if your resume is boring and ordinary and generic, what does that say about you as a person? And the same thing for a decision maker who's hiring a program director or a promotion director or a producer. They're looking for someone who gets personality. So keep it short. Definitely get it on one page, but show your sizzle. Make it exciting. If you want to show all of your information, all of your work history, all of your skills, all of your accomplishments, that's fine, but don't put it on the resume. Put it up on a website. And yes, every personality should have their own personal website, and I'm going to go into detail about that in just a second. You also don't need your entire education history. It just takes up too much space, and it's not all that relevant. So summarize the details. Oh, and do include references if you have them. If they're interested, they're going to ask anyway. So chances are, if they if they're really interested in you, and you've got a reference from someone that they know, that's fantastic. So include those references. Never put references on request. If you don't want to list references, leave it completely out. They can ask you for it later. Oh, and one more thing. Do start with a great personal statement or a qualification of goals, a qualification of your skills for that particular position. I love what Chris Pickett has done. This is a program director who sent me this resume, and this is fantastic. It makes him feel instantly familiar. Look at the top of this, how he gets right into it very quickly. I love his quote up there. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. Shows the things that he's most proud of. I love most proud of instead of accomplishments or look how great I am. And he's showing how he's transformed radio stations where he's been in the past. He's got a very brief history of his experience in the places that he's programmed, the places that he's been. He's also showing something about him personality. One of the things he's most proud of is his wife and kids. Shows his strengths. Shows how he spends his day, a day in the life. Isn't that great for a program director to show somebody that here's how I work, here's what I do, here's what's important to me. And then he's got his references, got 4 references down in the lower right-hand corner. And if you've been in radio for a while, you probably know at least 2 or 3, maybe all 4 of those references. So great references, very effective resume. It's probably the best resume I've seen come across my desk in a long, long time. The next step in building your application package is to build and manage a personal website. I believe that every personality should have a website. Every program director should have a website. There's no reason not to. It's easier. It's more affordable than ever. In fact, it's free with tools like Wix.com or WordPress. And now's the time to build it. Now, here's why you need it. Because I don't want to rely on someone else, an employer, a decision maker, program director, group head, to manage my career or build a brand. That's your job. So don't you want to control how that brand is represented online? And that starts with a well-designed and well-managed site. If you don't have a place to send people for more information about you, what are they going to do? They're going to Google you. They'll probably Google you anyway, but at least if you have your own site, chances are they're going to see what you want them to see rather than just what they happen to come across by doing a random Google search. And it makes it all available in one place. Now, as you're doing this, as you're building your site, think about your site architecture. And do this cleverly, and you could end up with a personal site for promoting to your audience. It could be front-facing in some ways, and you could put all of the job-seeking pages in details behind it. So here's how I would organize it. First, I'd start with a simple homepage, a big picture of you, and a personal logo if you have one. And I'd recommend you get one if you can. If you're using the site as a marketing tool for career advancement, don't put all those links and all that information on your homepage. Put it on an about page. So maybe you have a domain like www.yourname.com/about. Create an about page. That way you can save the homepage for an audience-facing site either today or sometime in the future. Now, the About page is where the action is. You want to keep it simple. You want to make it clean, easy to find the most important material that sells your personality and really makes you pop, really makes you come through, and really makes it exciting for the The About page is where the action is, and you want to keep it simple, you want to keep it clean, and easy to find the most important material that sells your personality and sets you apart. Here's the things that I would put on it. Number one, I would put in highlights. Highlights of the primary strengths, the things that you do really well. Don't go into detail about every skill, but list the 3, 4, maybe 5 things that make you stand out and make you special. Include your goals. What do you want? What's the next move that you're going to make? What are you out for? State it very clearly, proudly, where you want to be and when you want to be there. Include your social media links. Make it easy to find, because a lot of us tend to gather a bunch of social media pages, platforms, and if a decision maker goes and starts looking for them, they come up with all kinds of things that you may not even have been curating for the last 6 years. And when they come across those, not necessarily what represents you today. So if you put the ones up there that you're really managing, and just include the professional ones. If you've got personal pages or personal accounts, don't provide those links. Just provide the professional ones. And only include those links that have activity. Just because you've got an Instagram page doesn't mean they should be directed to the Instagram page if you're not doing anything there. Also include video. This is a great place to put video. Short welcome video makes a strong impact. It shows how you present yourself, how you come across. Avoid details here. Don't make it too long. Keep it brief. Make sure it's well lit. And there's a lot of tips on producing great videos on my website at insidersradionetwork.com. And this is where you want to put more air checks. A demo air check on the About page gets attention and makes the decision maker want to hear more. Make it downloadable. That's okay. But I prefer making it just clickable with an embedded player that the decision maker can't download. Because why? Well, I want the PD who likes the audio to send the page to the market manager or VP of programming so they see the entire About page rather than just sending a link with the MP3. It introduces more of your personality, gives you a chance to make more of an impression. Also include some links to content on your deeper pages. Now, what are the deeper pages? I call them detail pages. Maybe you've got your bio here. This is where you can go into detail about your work experience and your education and awards and the community involvement and your skills and all those things that I told you to leave off of your resume. You can put them on the bio page. Also should do a video page where you're showing your sizzle reel in a big window and then several more windows, some smaller windows of longer clips maybe that show your versatility and the different things that you can do. On some stations, video content's becoming a real priority. So it's a good idea to showcase some of the greatest hits of video that you've produced. Even if there's only a few of them, that's okay. You can include a few of those, but make sure you're only doing the good ones. More air checks, great place to put air checks, not just the main demo, but maybe you want to put up 3 or 4 different longer form elements that show your range and the different types of content that you can do. So that's a real good place to do that. But only include one track for each type of content. For example, if you're good at interviews, just put one great interview up there or one phone topic or one example of a personal story. For some personalities, it's a good idea to include a whole show in one file. Just make sure it's a recent show. Nobody wants to hear what you sounded like a year ago. They want to hear what you sounded like 2 weeks ago. So either keep it current or leave that full show off. And if you have a podcast, every personality can have a podcast. It's a great way to develop skills for your next gig, whether that podcast is ever heard or not. And if it's a good one, include it. If it hasn't really connected with an audience yet, or you're just using it to develop your skills, you might want to leave that out. And if you're a writer, if you've got a blog, this is where to put a link to your blog. But if writing's not a strength and the blog's kind of just a hobby or it's not updated, again, leave that out. You might also want to put up a testimonial page or a photos page or a variety of other things. The detail pages can be longer. You can have more information there, and the decision maker can go as deep into that content as they choose. Now, here's an example of what a great personal website should look like. This is a personality in Las Vegas. It's Sean Tempesta. Sean's getting ready for his next gig. He's ready for morning radio. He's a personality and television host in Las Vegas. Right away, he knows what he wants, and he tells you his next gig is going to be a morning show. And he's got enough detail on here where you can really feel like you get to know him. It shows some videos here. You go down a little bit further, and there's plenty of ways that you can get to know him on social media. It's all in one place. He's got some photos showing what his personal life is like. Great main page there. And you can check out more about his website at www.seantempesta.com. So that's how to get attention of the decision maker when you find a gig that you want. But how do you get attention to even get on the radar to begin with? You remember at the beginning we were talking about how you can improve your luck and how you can get on the radar, because a lot of those gigs are going to the people who are already familiar. And the same folks tend to get all the same gigs over and over. And a lot of times they're not more talented than you, and they're not more qualified, and they're just better connected. A lot of times that happens because managers like to hire people that they already know. It makes them more comfortable. That's why a key part of the Get That Gig strategy is to network to get work. It's kind of common sense, isn't it? Even if a candidate makes a strong impression, it's common to finish second because of one powerful force, and that force is familiarity. A manager would typically rather hire someone good that they know, that they trust, and have a relationship with, than somebody who is great, but they don't know them. Now, impressing management is usually not that difficult. Personalities and programmers have years of experience working with clients, working with listeners, and chances are you have some pretty good skills in those areas. But it's hard for management to judge how well somebody they don't know, that they don't have a relationship with, is going to fit into a new culture. How are they going to get along with the existing staff? How will they react to coaching and direction? These are real things. They're real concerns. And it's natural to place candidates they know at the top of the list, or candidates they've heard of, or candidates that have been recommended by someone that they trust. That's why networking to get work is crucial. And there's 3 key steps. One is to make contact and make friends, then follow up and build relationships, and stay in touch and turn those contacts into advocates and perhaps even mentors. Making connections takes time, but it's not that expensive. You do have to invest in yourself, though. If you're not going to invest in your career and invest in those relationships, who's going to do it for you? There's a lot of ways to reach out and make connections. Now, one good place to start is places like Morning Show Boot Camp or radio conventions. It's a place where personalities and programmers and talent coaches and consultants all gather. The exhibition hall at those conventions is probably not the best place to make connections. It's too crowded there, and after a while it kind of becomes a blur. The best way to participate in the sessions. So make connections and don't be shy. Ask questions and don't be shy to let people know that you're available. At Morning Show Boot Camp, Christina Ramey, terrific air personality who worked with Rula and Ryan in Houston, made a big impression at boot camp. I kept running into her. Every session she was up asking a thoughtful, well thought out question and demonstrating who she was. Then she came up and introduced herself. Now, she's networked her way to a great future by being bold. And within a few weeks of boot camp, I had 3 different program directors ask me about her for a potential opening. And one of those managers wasn't even at boot camp. He heard about it from others who happened to be there. So she managed to make a great impression by being prepared, asking questions, and participating. But there's other ways of making networked connections too. One is supervisors, people you already know. It's not that hard to expand a personal network. Just use the existing contacts from pros that you know now, who already know you, they already love you, they like you. Maybe you're working for them now. Everybody's got a program director or a former boss or a manager, an instructor, a teacher when they were in school. And most would be flattered to help spread the word among decision makers. So don't be shy about asking for help, asking for a personal introduction that establishes a new contact and expands your network. That's how I first met Christina, by the way. Eric Rao at KRBE Houston, who's one of America's best producers, introduced us a couple of years ago, and Christina took it from there. Now, each time you meet a new contact, you have expanded your network. But it's not just enough to have a contact with somebody. You also have to reach out to them and stay in touch with those contacts. Maybe it'll turn into a mentoring relationship. Maybe you don't have a personal contact that'll open those doors. That's okay. Start knocking. And you're going to get a lot of no's. You're going to get a lot of ignored messages that you send out. But some doors are going to open. And when those doors open, go through them. And use that to expand your network. Networks can grow very quickly when you start small and work the relationships. Maybe you work on consultants or talent coaches. We're always looking for exciting new talent. And most consultants are going to at least respond to an inquiry. It's easy to find an email address for most of us. Mine is Tracy, Tracy, at tjohnsonmediagroup.com. So go ahead and make a contact, start a relationship, and get out there and start getting recommended. And another source is my brand new media talent pool. That's why we started mediatalentpool.com. It's a free resource for personalities, program directors, producers, and promotion folks to be discovered, and for management to find new talent. Everybody should have a listing there for no other reason than to get on the radar of our group. When clients are looking for talent, that's where I send them. That's our go-to resource. So be honest when you're making these contacts. Be honest about contracts. Maybe you're under contract that has another 6 months or 9 months to run. That's okay, but make sure you tell the contact how your contract situation is. So you don't want to sell yourself, get somebody excited about you, and then say, oh, by the way, I'm under this contract. I'm not really available until next spring. So just be honest. Let them know. But having your network is where it all begins. Now, once you've got the contacts, then you continue to network by following up. Because when you're out of sight, you're out of mind. And decision makers have short attention spans, just like listeners. So when you've got your new connections, you want to seal that relationship by following up and follow up quickly. Always try to get a business card or a URL or an email address. And when you give your business card, and you should have business cards, you're marketing your business, have it link to your personality website included. And it's ideal if your business card includes a photo as a reminder of who you are when you made that initial contact. And then get their card and then follow up a few days later. So you've got to market yourself. It's not just a matter of making one contact and then waiting for the phone to ring. Be aggressive. And here's another really cool tip. Send a personal thank you card the old-fashioned way, snail mail. It'll stand out because we don't get as much mail as we used to. And nobody else is going to be sending that thank you card. It'll stand out as personal, it'll stand out as thoughtful, and it'll say something about your attention to detail. Once the demo package is in place, it feels great, but the job isn't yours yet. So make sure that you are not just waiting for the magic to happen. Give it a couple of days and then keep following up. Don't want to be a pest. And don't just call and say, hey, did you get my stuff? Because that's pointless. You need to have a plan or a strategy. It'll flatter the PD and stand out among all the others who are calling and bugging them saying, hey, did you get my stuff? So first call the PD. Unless they emphatically state no calls. And more are starting to do that. If it says no calls, don't call. It'll annoy them. But if you do call, if it doesn't say no calls and you do call, you're probably going to get voicemail. So be prepared with a message that makes another positive impression. Don't just say, I'm following up to see that you got my material and if there's anything I can do to help get this job. That's not a positive message. It's not something that's going to move your case forward. Mention that you're not expecting a call back because I know how busy you are, but I want to add a couple of other interesting things that you might not know about me. And then tell them to check their email first thing the next morning. And in that email, send a message that makes a specific point about your skills and how qualified you are for that gig. And that's where you might want to attach a follow-up piece of audio, a single segment of that shows how you're a perfect fit for that position. So that's a really good way of doing that. A market manager once told me that good selling is never wasted. And it's true. Good selling is never wasted. But annoying selling, where you're just trying to get to the finish line, is always a waste of time. The other thing is, remember that you may not get this gig, but it's going to make points with the PD, and it could lead to a great recommendation. Maybe another time with that station or the different station in the company. You never know where it's going to lead. And be sure to explain quickly who you are and why you're reaching out, and ask them for help. This is really flattering, and it goes a long way, and it lets them know that you're thoughtful, you're thinking about things, and that you've done your homework. So, for example, you could say something like, I really love how your morning show is handling phone calls. It's one of the areas I'm trying to improve, and I have a couple of questions. Maybe you have a hard time getting into calls quickly without making it sound abrupt or rude. How do you coach your shows to do that? How the decision maker responds to those questions is going to tell you a lot. It's going to reveal maybe whether you want to work for them or not. And finally, prepare for the gig. A lot of personalities want to move up, and I hear this all the time from talent, but they say, wow, there's just no opportunities because I really want to be a storyteller, but the PD has a really tight clock here, and I can only talk for 30 seconds at a time, so I can't really demonstrate that. Or start a podcast. That's what Deanna Cruz has done. She's been on the beach for a while, and she started Deanna Cruz Unfiltered, a weekly podcast where she's working on preparing for her next gig, which will be a morning radio job. You want to be on a team show? Go create a team with others who share your vision. It doesn't matter if nobody listens. In fact, it's probably better if they don't. So do it in the production studio, take it seriously, develop your skills, and then find someone to critique it for you. So what next? You're ready to get that gig. Well, it's time to go for it. What do you do now? Use your tools and use your resources. Now, learn as much about the decision makers as you can. Follow up with them. Follow up with everybody internally without going behind the decision maker's back. That's a good way to get on the naughty list, but make an impact in as many different departments inside the station as you can. Great way to do it, and I've used this technique before, and I've coached personalities to use this before, and program directors. A lot of times it's financially impossible for a decision maker to bring in all the candidates they want for an in-person interview. Fly yourself in. Fly yourself in for a day. Make sure that they know that you're paying for the trip and that there's no commitments, but if you can get a personal meeting and you have to pay for the meeting and it might cost you $400 or $500, it's a pretty good investment in your future. It'll blow them away. Now, if you're qualified for the gig and aren't on the short list of candidates, this is going to get you on the short list. And if you're already on the short list, but you weren't coming in for the interview, could be exactly what it takes to put you over the top. It's truly one of the greatest get that gig tactics of all time. Always impresses. Then interview the decision maker. Ask great questions, and there's a couple of great questions that every candidate for a job should ask the decision maker. It's, what does it take to be successful here, and how can I help you become more successful? Here's some tools and resources you can use. Everybody should be in my media talent pool. www.mediatalentpool.com. It's free listings for everybody. It's a way for talent to get discovered, and it's a way for management to find new talent. And after you get your listing, you fill out an application at mediatalentpool.com. I'll get your listing put up. Then you can manage it. You can add comments, you can add testimonials, there'll be questions and answers, and you can always look and see what kind of activity you've got. Also, you should take advantage of this. Invest in your career, invest in your future. And one of the services that we offer is Air Check Consulting. 1 hour sessions with the Tracy Johnson Media Group talent coaches, Mike Shepard, Andy Meadows, and myself are available for you. Andy even will help you edit your air check. You send him your demo, he'll edit it for you and get it ready to go so it impresses that decision maker. And since you're on this seminar today, use the discount code INTRO50, uppercase INTRO 50, and you'll get the air check coaching session for 50% off, a 50% discount. And you can book your session now at www.aircheckcoaching.com. And then I'll point you to some resources. At aircheckcoaching.com, we've got a bunch of Get That Gig resources. You can download the Get That Gig ebook, a bunch of articles. You can watch this seminar on demand, and there's a lot of things that will help you go further and get that gig at aircheckcoaching.com. I hope this helped you. You can always reach out and contact us at any of these places. It's a tough business world for a lot of different industries, and radio is a tough industry. And there may not be as many great gigs out there, and there may be more candidates who are trying to get those gigs. But there's a lot of great gigs that are available, and there's a lot of management that's looking for the right people and the right fit. And so I really believe that if you put some time and effort and some marketing creativity and some sizzle into your search, you're going to be successful and you can get that job of your dreams. I'm Tracy Johnson. Thank you very much for being a part of this webinar today. I hope you go out there and you get that gig.